right. Hey, so it's great to be with you, whether you're online or whether you're here in the room for the conclusion of our series that has a title that might catch you a little bit off guard: How to Be Rich. Because, we're thinking, well, this doesn't really apply to me because I'm not rich. I get a pass on this because I'm not rich. Well, compared to how most of the world lives, we all are. See, here's the thing. If you had something to eat yesterday and you're probably going to have something to eat today, and if you're able to drink a glass of water whenever you want and be almost certain that it doesn't contain bacteria that's going to kill you, and if your kids are in a place where there's virtually no chance for them to be killed by a wild animal, and that they're not suffering any sort of exposure to the elements, and you have reasonably consistent Wi-Fi, congratulations, you're rich. But still, we're not convinced because, see, here's the thing. We don't feel rich. I know. So maybe this series can kind of meet you at this level. This is a series about being good at being rich. So in the event that you find yourself being rich, we're going to give you the tools that you'll need so that you can be good at it. Because, who knows, something could happen like ending up with, $1.3 million stuffed in a chest inside your bedroom, which leads us to a story about a man named Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke was a scientist. He lived in London in the 17th century, and this was really the place to be if you were a scientist during that time in history. And Hooke was the head of experiments for the Royal Society, which is now known as the oldest national scientific institution in the world. And so Robert Hooke, when it came to science, he was a rock star to those who followed the science. And of course, we're all supposed to follow the science, right? Here are some things that he did. He was a pioneer in the development of vacuum tubes and actually set the stage for Robert Boyle to do his seminal work. He was one of the first to discover the rotation of planets like Jupiter and Mars and Venus and how they spun around. He made up some of the basic hypotheses of gravity. He was also did groundbreaking work in the development of calculus. And so if you ever failed calculus in college, you have him to thank that for. And then he also argued that fossils were from creatures from a long time ago as he figured this out. And so his career is just humming along as a world-class scientist, and then something happened. He ran into Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. You've probably heard of Isaac Newton. And so Isaac Newton submits this paper about light as particles, which completely conflicted with all the theories that up to that point that Robert Hooke put forward in the Royal Academy. And so the war between these two men was on. It was like this, this scientific death match. These two scientists that were trying to out-experiment each other and out-paper each other and out-debate each other. And they were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then we come to find out Newton exposes Hooke during the conflict as this guy that frequently takes other people's experiments and claims them to be his own. And besides the science, the real discovery was about Hooke's character. Robert Hooke was defensive, moody, jealous. He had a caustic tongue. He was difficult, suspicious, and irritable. At least that's what his biographers recorded. It's quite a story. Now, if someone wanted to write your story and put those things in it, you'd want to fire that biographer and hire another one, wouldn't you? But that was what was recorded. And also, Robert Hooke had wealth. Now, the full amount was only found out on the day of his death. Hooke, who never married, never had kids, but did sleep regularly with his niece, said that he would someday bequeath all of his riches to the Royal Society so that the society would be set up for years and years to come. But on the day of his death, they discovered Hooke's body as well as a chest containing money and gold, a chest full of it, there in his bedroom. But they didn't find a will because there wasn't one. which meant that all of his money went to a distant cousin instead. So what do you call a person like this? Well, I think you call him someone who was rich, but not good at being rich. You see, Robert Hooke, who had been burned seemingly by Newton, and with that experience, it appeared that he decided to stop sharing. So he ends up in his room alone with a trunk full of money, which by today's standards would amount to about $1.3 million. So his is a story about a scientist who had everything a scientist could ever have in London 3 centuries ago, but how did he end up? He ended up as a guy who had a bunch of money when he was dead. But see, here's the thing, is that you don't need a bunch of money when you're dead. Now, if this story sounds familiar, it's because Jesus told a story about this very thing, and it ties into the passage that we've been looking at in our series. And so I invite you to take your Bibles out and turn to 1 Timothy chapter 6. If you have a copy of the scriptures, you can go ahead and turn there. You can also go ahead and take that those message notes that we have provided for you in your program. If you're here in the room and follow along, you can also follow along on the Terra Nova app. We've been looking at this letter that is written by a guy named Paul. Sometimes he's known as St. Paul or the Apostle Paul. He's this guy that maybe you've heard of. He was the leader of the Jesus movement here in the first century, but the twist in his story is that formerly he was this Christian hater, this Christian hunter. He tried to persecute the followers of Jesus, and then he became one. Anyway, he writes to his young protege, a young man named Timothy, who was pastoring a church in a leading city of that time, the city of Ephesus, and he is instructing Timothy about the people that are part of his community and about how Timothy can help them in leading them to be good at being rich. Okay, so with that background in mind, let's go ahead and look again at 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17. He says this. He says, command those who are rich, like us, in this present world, not to be arrogant, which is really easy to do. It's really easy to get an inflated view of yourself because of your inflated net worth. He says, yeah, command them not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. You know, wealth, it just goes up and down. But to put their hope in God. Now, he says this because putting your hope in riches is a dangerous trap. It will cause us to look at money for the things that we should be looking to God for. I mean, sure, you need to be wise with your money. We can use it as a tool. We can be smart about it. We can save it. We can invest it. But he's saying, hey, at the end of the day, is that you need to put your hope and trust in God and not money. And the same God that he says, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Don't you love that? I sure do, because I love enjoyment. Because it's like Paul saying, hey, know this, is that when God gives us an abundance, is that we shouldn't feel guilty, is that we should feel grateful for it and enjoy it. And the best way to enjoy this everything that he says, he gives us everything, well, that's what Paul wants to talk about next. He says, again, to all the rich people, and that's us, the next verse, he says, command them to do good, not to be good. Oh yeah, make sure that they be good. No, but to do good. And to be rich in good deeds and to be generous and willing to share, which is what this Be Rich campaign that John has been sharing with you about is all about. It's where we enter into no strings attached, are you kidding me, compassion and generosity. And so I want us to together, if we can, pull out the card that you've got. If you're here in the room, the card looks like this. Hopefully you got it in your program. If you didn't get it in your program, is that we've got plenty of cards that are in the lobbies and the back tables. Make sure that you get one. Some of you got these cards last week. You've been working on them. That's great. We want to go ahead and pull this out. If you're watching online, all of this information that you can find, if you've got that Terra Nova app, you'll just go ahead and go to the button that says Give, Serve, Love, and go ahead and press that. You can see it that way. You can also go to our website, www.ourterranova.com/berich, and that you can find out all about what it is that we are doing together as a church community. And basically boils down to kind of three different components or 2 different parts. Here's the first one is the give part, is that we are looking to go ahead and go back. We're looking to raise $60,000 above what it is that we normally give here at Terra Nova, because we want to raise all this money, frankly, just to give it all away. And to give it all away in some of the initiatives that we've identified that you can look at in your card. The first one is that we're looking to fund some wheelchairs going to Egypt. We're hoping to ship a container of 550 wheelchairs, because that's what will fit in an ocean container, to Cairo, Egypt. And we're also going to have a team to deliver them. And now with these wheelchairs, it's really exciting because we're working with a group that we've had a great relationship. They're called NEO, Near East Organization. I've been with these guys on the ground in Lebanon working with Syrian refugees. They work all throughout the Middle East, but the particular expression in Egypt that they focus on is working with disabled and handicapped people in one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world, where there's very few resources for handicapped people, and that the worldview of this particular place tends towards treating these people with a lot of shame and actually lacking resources. So we are just so excited to be able to come together and to meet this need, and to really see how it is that these wheelchairs will come with the message of Jesus to the city of Cairo. And we get to do this, and so it's going to be exciting. This next thing that we're going to be doing is Kids Feeding Kids. We want to fund Kids Feeding Kids. We want to be able to purchase and package 50,000 meals for orphanages in Africa. The particular country that we'll be targeting is Zambia. And so these are meals that are going for kids, and that we want to provide for these kids, these meals that are going to be shipped out there. Next thing we're doing is Love in a Cup. And this is going to be great. This is something that we do kind of here in our neighborhood in doing it, we're serving the teachers of Olive Elementary School, which is an elementary school that is nearby here. And it is one of the most least served elementary schools in our community. We've been focusing on them for a number of years, have a great partnership with them, and somebody came up with this great idea, one of the teachers actually, to be able to put a tumbler where we're going to stuff it with things that teachers would need and also that they would like, as well as a $50 Staples gift card, so that they can have the freedom to go to Staples and to buy the unique teacher supplies and classroom supplies that they'll need as they begin the school year. And so we're really excited about that. We want to give to that. And then we've got one last thing here, and it's Haiti and Afghanistan. So two countries that are countries of focus for us, one in the Western Hemisphere, one in the Eastern Hemisphere. I've been to both of these countries. Some of you know that Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, a place of huge need, a place that has been racked recently by a series of earthquakes. We all know that. And we've got some great partners that are going to be really doing a great job of serving the poor and needy in Haiti, and there's a lot of them. And then there's Afghanistan. Wow, don't even get me started on Afghanistan, a country that I personally have huge heart for, was impacted by spending time there, and that all the things that are going on in Afghanistan is that we want to be able to meet some needs, and we've got friends that are doing some amazing work, both with refugee populations that are going to swell, Afghans that are going to be out of that country, as well as Afghans that have decided to remain in country. And many of them are followers of Jesus, and it's going to be a very challenging and dangerous time for them. We have an opportunity to resource both of those people groups. We've got a chance to be able to give to great organizations that are going to be working and serving them. And so that is the give part. That's the part where we give. Let's talk about the serve part here for a second. This is really exciting. We've already gone ahead and put in the books our serve day at the Abbey last weekend. I was blown away with how many people showed up, and it was hot, and it was fun because we did gardening and we did demolition. Demolition was really fun. Jackhammers, sawzalls, it was awesome. You guys did great. But we've got some more things in store for the serve part. One is the meals team that happens at the Village of Hope here in a couple weeks on September 18th. Real easy for you to check the box on your Be Rich card, or you can go ahead and just write Village of Hope in your Connect card as well. And we'd love to have you serve down at the Orange County Rescue Village of Hope on that Saturday. Next up, on the first weekend of October 1st and 2nd, we've got Kids Feeding Kids. Now, this is something as a church that we've been doing for a number of years. It's just this great time that we have in our parking lot on Friday night and a Saturday morning for us to get together and to pack all those meals that we're purchasing that are going to go to Zambia. Going to be a great event, take about 2 hours of your time. And as you see the name Kids Feeding Kids, that tips you off that this is a really good event for kids. And so if you've got kids or if you know kids, man, we didn't want to get the kids that are there because it's a great event to get our children involved. And so make sure that you lock into that, as well as it's a great way for people that we know in our community to get involved that might not be like God, Bible, Jesus people, that you're always inviting to Terra Nova and they're always like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go to this church thing. But if you come to them and said, hey, we're going to pack meals to go to Zambia to kids in Africa, is that they might say yes to that. And we've seen that time and again where that's happened. We've seen people bring sports teams. We've seen people bring Boy Scout and Girl Scout trips. We've seen people bring friends from the neighborhood and from the classroom. And we've even seen people bring their whole work groups, people that they work with together that they invite on out. Great opportunity. Love to have you involved with Kids Feeding Kids. And then the following week is that we've got a blood drive. That next weekend, it's going to be our opportunity for us to give blood, okay? We're not giving money and we're not working, but we're giving blood. And it's going to be great because here's the thing is we know how our whole healthcare system has been impacted over the last year and a half and the challenges and struggles that have ensued there. And it's also meant that a lot of people have pulled back from giving blood. But we don't want to pull back. Is that we're looking to between 25 to 50 Terra Novans to come and give blood over that weekend. We're using a LifeStream blood bank who has assured us is that all the blood that we will give will actually stay in our Orange County, Southern California community. And so that's the big feature with our blood drive. And then finally is that we've got this free community meals thing that, again, you can read about and that you've heard about. A number of different ways for you to play. Go ahead and check and take a look at your card about the different ways that you can participate in that. Here's the thing. People come to me all the time and say, hey, tell me more about that. And we're like, yeah, we're kind of making this thing up because we're partnering with South County Outreach. We're meeting together with them this week and beginning to get some answers and some refinement to what it is that we're going to be doing. But this we know. We know that on Monday nights in the fall, we're going to be opening up our room here and that we're going to be providing a free meal for anybody that wants to come and have it. A meal for you to invite your neighbor to. A meal for you to invite someone in the community that you might see during the week that seems like that they could use a meal. And seems like that could be a need. And that we're just going to open it up and we're going to open up this room. We're going to open up our hearts. We're going to see what happens. We're going to share a meal together. And that we're together going to learn how to practice this whole biblical art of hospitality. That's going to be going on with the free community meals. Now the third component, let me tell you, is this the love component, and this is where it kind of gets creative. This is where we take this handout that John talked about. You can also find it, again, in the online parts, the electronic parts. This is Be Rich handout, and what we're wanting to do with this, it's just to love our neighbors in creative ways. We might see needs in our community, in our local neighborhood, and going, you know what, is that there's something that really needs to happen about this, or there's a need that's here that someone should meet, and that someone is me. And so what we'd love to have you do is to be on the lookout, find out what that is, who that person is that you want to see God's love come to, and then just go ahead and just fill in this form, and then just get it to us. You can get it to us tonight. You can mail it to us, or you can use the online version, and then we'll be working together as you as the point person to be able to make God's love famous in their life. And so that's going to be really excited as well. And so here's the thing, is that if you're here in the room tonight, is that you've got an opportunity to kind of work on this card, which is great because some of you actually will be able to, work, with cat-like quickness, and that you'll be able to hand this in at the end of our time together. Others of you that actually brought this card filled out, and you're ready to hand that in. So you'll have some time throughout the course of our time together to be able to work on this. Or if you're feeling like, I need more time, no worries. You'll have opportunities here, in the days to come to be able to get it to us. Take all the time you need to think about it, pray about it, strategize on it, how much you want to give, ways that you want to serve, how you want to love, and then we're going to work on all of that together. All right, so now with all of this, okay, because I've said a lot, there's a lot of ground that we've covered, but here's the hope in all of this. It's the hope is that together as we enter into these things, is that we are going to become good at being rich, which means our lives are going to have a better story, a much better story than the Robert Hooke kind of story. You see, for you and I, there's going to be a different way for us. And Paul, he talks to Timothy about this way again as he writes this letter to them. And let's go ahead and return then to 1 Timothy chapter 6. He talks about this way. In verse 19, he says this, in this way, in this way, like the way that we're talking about, by being rich in good deeds and generous and open-handed, like we're doing through the campaign here. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves. And that's weird, isn't it? I mean, what we're seeing here is that by giving things away is that we're going to get more and more treasure for ourselves, and we're going to get it as a firm foundation for the coming age, for the coming age. By giving all of this away, by being generous, by being rich in good deeds, we're going to be generous here in this present world that Paul talks about, but we're storing up treasure in what he calls the coming age, which is his kind of code word, not for this life, but for another life. It's his code word for eternity. It's his code word for heaven. And we're doing it so that these rich people like us may take hold of the life that is truly life. And don't you want that? Life that's truly life. And so Paul here, he's tapping into a principle that frankly is so big. It's woven all throughout the scriptures, especially in the teachings of Jesus. And it's just this. There's a relationship between what you do with your wealth and how you will spend eternity. What Paul is saying here is that your rich generosity in this life will gain for you an abundance in the life to come, in the coming age. And it's something that Jesus talked about all the time. And so I thought it would be great for us to wrap up our series by taking a look at a story that Jesus told. Now, it's possible this story might have inspired Paul to write these very words to Timothy that we've just studied. And so let's take a look at the story in Luke chapter 12. You can go ahead and turn over to Luke chapter 12 in the Gospels. And what we find when we get to that chapter is Jesus is teaching away, and then he's interrupted by a guy. And this guy notices that Jesus, he's got authority. He's good at solving problems. And so he comes to him and says, hey, Rabbi, we've got an inheritance problem, my brother and I. Tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. And so it's a money problem, and it's an inheritance problem, and it's causing family conflict. I mean, imagine that, an inheritance problem causing family conflict, but yet here it is. And so he says, Rabbi, Jesus, he says, please pull your weight and fix the problem. But Jesus declines, rather impolitely. And then he says, in verse 15, he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. And now, here comes the story. The next verse 16. He says, then he told him a parable. The land of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. And so here's the story. It's about a rich guy that just got richer. This guy had a great year. It's a bumper crop, all the extra. And here he's already rich, but he's got extra. He's got extra. And so he thought to himself, what should I do? For I have no place to store my crops. Now, what kind of problem is this? This is a rich person problem, right? You've heard of those. The rich person problem. He's got this rich person problem. What do I do with all the extra? My barns are full. So his solution, here's his solution. He says, this is what I'll do. He says, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grain and all my goods. Yep. I'll tear down perfectly good barns and build bigger ones, and I'm going to store more stuff. And it's a great solution. If all there was to this life is this life. It's a great solution if all there was to this world was the present world. It's a great solution if there's no eternal ramifications, if there's no eternal significance to his wealth, if there's no coming age. And then he said, I said to myself, you got plenty of goods laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. So for this man, what was the goal in life? The goal in life was comfort. The goal in life was, man, I want to be comfortable. The goal in life was to ease back It was to turn the dial of life to receiver mode. And again, that's great if that's all there is to this life. Now, at this point, Jesus is really stirring the pot emotionally for the people that are hearing his story. I mean, the people that are listening to the story, they don't even know what to think about this guy, right? Is he smart? Is he selfish? Is he lucky? And probably nobody thinks he's stupid, which makes the next line surprising. Look at the next line. But God said to him, "You fool, you are a fool. Not because you're rich. You're a fool because you don't know how to be rich. Because you made all these financial decisions based on this life alone. And this life is short. It's like a vapor. It's like a mist. It's like a whisper. It goes so quick. It's here and it's gone." So God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you." It's like God is saying, time's up, put the pencils down, pass your papers forward, test is over, because tonight, it's time to return the life that you've been given. And then who? Who will get what you have prepared for yourself? And the answer is somebody else. And that's the answer for us too. It's somebody else. Not because you are generous, but because you're dead. And as we learned from Robert Hooke, is that you don't need money when you're dead. And now Jesus, he's going to apply the story then to the people's lives there and to our lives. He's saying, okay, here's the punchline. Take a look at verse 21. He says this. He says, "This is how it will be with those who store up things for themselves but are not rich toward God." Jesus is saying, look, you know what? If you do that, you are going to set your life up for total loss instead of being rich towards God. So you see, we've got two different categories together that we need to consider. Category number one is that there's rich in this present world. And that's what Paul was telling Timothy to tell the rich people, right? He said, there is that. There's rich in the present world, but then there's number two is that there's rich towards God. Rich towards God. There's rich in this short temporary life, right? Just a shadow of really what's real. But then there's rich in the life to come. There's rich in the coming age, and that's really rich. It's rich in the real world. And so the reason that this guy is a fool is because he saw everything only through the lens of this present world. Only through the lens of what he could get and how he could consume what he could get. So he stockpiled money in the present world. He made no investment in the coming age, in the real world, which leads us then to this question that you've probably been thinking about. Okay, so that's fine. So how do I become rich toward God? Well, later on in Luke chapter 12, is that Jesus summarizes really the whole conversation and defines being rich towards God. And I think that it's so powerful is that we should say it all together out loud. It's Luke chapter 12, verse 33 and 34. Let's go ahead and say this all together out loud on the count of three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. "Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." There it will be also. Jesus is saying, hey, take your possessions, liquidate some of them and give. Be rich in good deeds and generous. And as a rich person, is that we've got more, and so we need to leverage more. We need to leverage our extra to do more good for those around us. And that's really what this Be Rich campaign that we've been talking about is all about. And Jesus says, then you'll have treasure in heaven. Then you'll have real wealth where it really matters, and it will be secure. Because you see, there's a relationship between the good that I do with what I have here and how things will be for me there in the coming age. There's a relationship to what it is that I give away here and to what I store up there. And so here's what you find too in the end, man, it changes your heart. it just changes your heart as you begin to see your income and your wealth through the lens of eternity. And as you give gladly towards the people that God loves and extend his kingdom, you know what happens? Your heart changes. And as your heart changes, you know what? Stuff, you will loosen your grip on stuff, and stuff will loosen its grip on you. And you'll discover that God has got more and more of your heart. And that's how to be rich toward God. And that's why Paul ends his advice to rich people. Let's go ahead and go back to 1 Timothy 6. Let's take a look at verse 19 one more time, where he says this, in this way, in this way, the way that we've been talking about, is that these rich people, including us, will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that he's saying, okay, so here comes the purpose, so here's the intent of everything that I've been trying to say, so that they may take hold of life that is truly life. Now, here's why we're talking about this. And here's why we're doing the Be Rich campaign. It's because every day is that we're tempted to reach for a life that isn't really life. You know, we paint the bullseye on the wrong target because we think if I had more, I'd live more. We think if I could consume more, I'd feel more alive. But here's what Paul knew, and here's what you and I really know. We know when I give more, I live more. When I give more, I live more. And there's all kinds of research on this. I mean, don't take my word for it. Take a look at the research. You'll see the research when you study it is that we see that generosity generates happiness and creativity in people. In fact, people who participate in these generosity studies report being more effective with their time, feeling more connected to people, more empathetic, that they even sleep better. And on top of all that, I mean, all that stuff is great, but on top of that, there's something even more powerful as we seek to love and serve and give more, is that Jesus is asking us to walk a path that he himself walked. Not only did Paul write to guys like Timothy in places like Ephesus, but he also wrote to different church communities throughout the Mediterranean world. One of those places is a place called Corinth. And 2 Corinthians 8:9 is that he writes this to his Corinthian friends. He says this. He says, "For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that through his poverty you might become rich." Now he's trying to tap into this idea that Jesus as the ruler, as the creator, as the all-powerful, all-wise, and all-knowing God, super rich, he puts all of that aside and he comes to this earth not as rich, but as poor. And you wouldn't expect God to do that, right? You wouldn't expect God's son to be born to a teenage girl living in poverty amongst an oppressed and powerless people in an obscure backwater kind of place. And yet that's what happened. And when Jesus died, he was literally stripped of what little he possessed, what little he had. You see, Jesus gave everything. He gave everything, including his own life on the cross. And today, we want to remember that through what some church traditions call the Eucharist, or other church traditions call the Lord's Supper, but we call communion. We're going to enter into a time of communion to remember all this. And so I'd like the band to come forward to lead us in this time. And as they come forward and get ready, let me just say this, is that through the ages that followers of Jesus have continued to connect and commune with God in the way that we are going to do. And I just think it's so powerful because there's just kind of a timeless nature to what we're doing. See, first off is that communion, as we take the bread and the cup, it connects us to the past. You see, long ago, 2,000 years ago plus, is that there was this moment when Jesus established this practice that we're going to do. He did it with his disciples. It was the night before he died. He was crucified, and he took a piece of bread, and he took the cup, and he said, "Hey guys," he said, "do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me." He says, "You know what I'm going to do? The way I'm going to sacrifice," he says, "don't forget it. Don't forget it." He says, "Look back in the past. Do not forget it." And so in the times when you and I feel unloved and unvalued, is that we can look back in the past, we can remember that God paid the ultimate price for us. And so it's something that connects to the past, it's also something that connects us to the present. Because you see here in just a moment, when we take the bread and the cup into ourselves and we consume it, is that it tells us in a sensory way that the life of Christ dwells in our life. So during those times when we feel like that we have no strength, like no power at all, this is the reminder that we can believe again that the life of Christ is in our lives presently. But not only connecting us to the past and connecting us to the present, but it also connects us in the future, because you see, Jesus said someday, is that we're going to have a feast like this in heaven all together with him. And so it's like what we do now is it's just like practice. It's just like rehearsing for the real thing, which the scriptures call the wedding feast of the Lamb. And so during those times for you and I, when things feel dark and hopeless and unsure, is that we know that in times future is that our story is going to end gloriously. It's going to end well. And so with this in mind, as the band plays, and if you're here in the room tonight, is that here's what we're going to do. The band's going to play some background music, and that we would just love to have you stand from your seats and move towards the tables that are in the back of the room. There are communion elements that are there. We'd like you to go ahead and take those communion elements and then bring them back to your seat. While you're going there too, as we'd mentioned, if you are ready to hand in your Be Rich commitment card, there are some places, you'll see them, where you can hand them in on the table. If you don't have them ready, that's more than cool. You've still got plenty of time to work on those things in the days to come and get it to us, but that's there for you, and that you can use this moment as a real moment of worship as you hand that in, and that's fine. And so then, once you have those communion elements, we want you to go ahead and back to your seats and go ahead and wait for everybody to have theirs, and then I'll go ahead and lead us together in a time of taking the bread and the cup. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and stand, and then you can begin to move towards the tables, and then we'll be getting ready to have communion together. All right, so let's share in this together. The scriptures tell us that the Lord Jesus, on the night that he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Take, eat of it in remembrance of me." Let us partake of the bread together. And the scriptures tell us that in the same way, on the same night, Jesus took the cup, saying, "This cup is a new covenant of my blood. Drink of it in remembrance of me." Let us partake of the cup together. All right, now shall we stand? With grateful hearts, let's go ahead and sing as the band leads us.
from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, oh loved one, come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. So lay down your burden, lay down your shame. Oh, who are broken, lift up your faith. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your head, lay down your heart, and come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who stray. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, a rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure. Lay down your burden, lay down your shame. Oh, who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. Lay down your head, lay down your heart, come as you are, come as you are, fall in his arms, come as you are. There's joy for the morning, draw near and be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. Oh, who are broken, lift up your faith. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. Lay down your head, lay down your heart, come as you are, come as you are, come as you are, come as you are.
Heavenly Father, thank you that we come to you. Really, the only way we can come to you is exactly that way, just as we are, and that you love us and accepted us and believe in us just as we are, and then you see us as we can be, as you created us to be, filled with lives that are full of generosity and goodness and compassion, and we want to live into your vision of us as you, by your Spirit, just continue to transform us. We're just so grateful to you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, if you're here in the room, you can grab a seat really quick. And before you online tune out, just want to say thank you so much for being here. Before we leave, I want to just mention again these Connect cards that you might have started to fill out. We'd love to hear from you before you check out. Please take a moment to say hi. Let us know where you're watching from, how things are going in your life, especially if we haven't seen you in a while. And of course, in the room, would love to hear from you. And again, if you're a guest, thank you so much for being with us today. You can also, as you're heading out, drop these Connect cards in the baskets. Guest services will be out there to receive them. You can drop offering envelopes there as well. If you are giving towards Be Rich, you can use this envelope towards that. Just make sure you write Be Rich on there. So it goes, as we've said, 100% of everything that gets given to Be Rich will go to these causes. Not a penny will be used for anything around here. And so you can begin doing that this week. In fact, people already have begun doing that. And so thank you for that. It's going to be amazing. If you were like, hey, I'm not really sure I'm really ready to make that commitment, and you saw that card and you went, wow, I want to put a little more thought into that, I respect that. In fact, I would encourage you to do so. You please take that card, take it home. If you didn't get a card and you were sitting there the whole time going, I don't even know what they're talking about, there are some of these flyers that are on the tables on the back and out in the lobby. Grab one of those, take it home, and then maybe grab one of these giving envelopes. And these are mailable. Postage paid, and you can stick that commitment card in this envelope, put that in the mail, or bring it back with you next week. We would love to make an announcement in 2 weeks about how we did, and you'd probably like to hear how we did. Hey, did we meet our goal? Did we exceed our goal? Do we still need $45,000? Like, where are we? We won't be there, by the way. We're already past that. So you'll want to hear about it. I'll want to talk about it. So make those commitments within that week and get that into us. By the way, speaking of next week, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're kicking off a brand new series called Speak Life. So listen, thank you so much for being with us. Have a great week. Join us next week for this new series, The Right Words at the Right Time, and bring somebody back with you. It's going to be a perfect series for some friends. Check it out.